What's going on, YouTube? My name is Ben, and welcome back to my channel, Houndoom's House. Hope you're having a great day today. Today's Wednesday. We're almost at the end of the week, and let me tell you, I cannot wait. Today, we're going to be talking about mistakes to avoid when you first start selling online. Whether it's TCG Player, whether it's eBay, these are just all-around mistakes that you want to avoid. Now, I'm not necessarily the most qualified person to give advice or anything. I've sold probably $30,000, $35,000 on between TCG Player and eBay, mostly eBay though, over the last, let's call it 14 months since I really started to lock in. But a big part of that has actually come in the last 8 months. When I really started to lock in. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm probably the person to take advice from, but I have made so many mistakes that I would say I'm a great person to tell you about which mistakes I've made because I've made them very recently and they're fresh of mind. So this video is just meant to go through some of the mistakes, the many mistakes that I've made, and hopefully you can avoid making these same mistakes if you're getting started selling on any of these online platforms. So the first mistake is overgrading the condition of your cards. And what I mean by this is listing something that's probably mod play for light play. Now this isn't something that happens maliciously a lot of the time. I think that it's easy to look at a card and think, you know what, I think this could sell at light play, and that's fine. But the problem is that, you know, there are guidelines, especially on TCG Player, for card conditioning, and they're very strict about following those guidelines. So if the buyer feels there was an issue and, you know, their documentation supports that, then TCG Player is going to take their side. You know, eBay, you have to point out what the condition is as well. So anytime you're maybe questioning the condition, it's probably always smart to just default to the condition below. Like, let's say you're somewhere between mod play and light play, right? For me, I would probably go mod play, just because I don't want to open the door for an issue. Now, this gets a little trickier as you get into high-end stuff, and that's where pictures become really important. But when it comes to these lower level things that you're probably just trying to move quickly and are kind of coming in and out more frequently, just make sure you're describing the card as is. I know there's a little difference in price between light play and mod play, but that difference in profit isn't going to be worth the potential headaches that you have for your store and your reputation by listing it at that level. All right, mistake number 2, which is very similar to mistake number 3, but we'll get to there. Mistake number 2 is just misidentifying card variants. Obviously, we all know that in a pack you get, you know, a handful of common and uncommons, and then some uncommon and common reverse holos, and then you get a holo, right? Or at least that's how it currently is with Scarlet and Violet and Mega Evolution and so on and so forth. Be careful, especially when you're listing on TCG Player, that you are entering the correct variant for a card. It's very easy to get mixed up and maybe say, hey, I've got 15 Dons from Phantasmal Flames, but maybe 3 of those are actually reverse holos. So let's say somebody wants to purchase a Don from you and they buy that card and they wanted just the standard variant. But you ship them the reverse holo, right? You think, oh, I had 15 of these, blah, blah, blah. I'll get them their card. We're good. They're actually trying to master set, though. So they just received a card that they already had, not one that they needed. Well, they're going to follow up with you most likely, and you might have an issue on your hands. And, you know, you really want to try to mitigate as many issues with really low value cards as possible. Another thing with this one is that you've also got cards that they've used like the same artwork. Another thing to look out for with this too is that they have used the same artwork for a card in 2 separate sets. For example, the Vaporeon, the Flareon, the Jolteon that are in 151 also appear in Prismatic Evolutions, those same artworks. So it's very easy to maybe get those mixed up, and you list, you've got one of each of those and you list them under Prismatic Evolutions, but you know what, those are actually from the 151 set. So very hard thing sometimes to ID, but just make sure when you're listing things like that you've got the correct variant and the correct set. So mistake number 3, which I said is like mistake number 2, is just the same thing, but with your double rares and your ultra rares. EX cards, for example, you might have a standard EX, a full art EX, and then a special illustration rare EX. All for the same Pokemon and all basically the same card in function, just not in rarity or style. Now, with this, you just want to be careful because chances are you're probably treating the special illustration rare a little differently, so we won't worry about that as much. But for the other two, you might see an order come through that says Mega Lopunny EX from Phantasmal Flames, and you go to your bulk and you go through and you look and you say, oh, got it, and you put it away, white envelope, ship it out. Well, then a buyer reaches out to you and they say, hey, I was actually looking for the full art version. This is just the standard EX. And then you've got to figure that situation out, right? I bring up that specific example because I did that yesterday. Luckily, I caught it because someone else ordered the Mega Lopunny EX in the full art form, and I was able to, as I was shipping those orders out, make the switch. But had I not, that would have gone right out as the incorrect card, and I would have had another issue to deal with. So it's really important, especially when you're looking at like a packing list, making sure that you look at the number of the card in the set just to make sure that you have the right variant. All right, number 4 mistake, and I alluded to this in another video about TCG Player, but price floor for your bulk. Listing bulk, if you're starting out, you might think, oh, I can list a bunch of bulk cards at like 1 cent, 5 cents, 10 cents, and they'll sell really fast, and I will get my 41 sales or my 41 orders, and I will get to level 4, and it'll be a 1 to 2 week process. That is not how that ends up going. Because when you do that, someone is probably going to clear you out of a bunch of bulk for $3, $4. They're only going to pay 99 cents for shipping. And then you're going to be on the hook for buying tracking, tracked shipping for those cards because there's too much to put in a plain white envelope. So someone has spent a total of $4 at your shop, and then you're on the hook to find the 50 cards that they ordered, and then you have to go onto, let's say, Pirate Ship, and you have to pay $7.50 for a shipping label that you need to send the cards to them. It probably happened to me 3 or 4 times overnight when I first listed cards. So I learned that in a very aggressive and harsh way. But yeah, don't do that. Set a price floor. Set 25 cents, 30 cents, maybe even 20 is fine with you. Just set a price floor. Sometimes people might still buy the bulk. It's obviously not going to sell as fast, but it's much better than having to deal with orders like that. Mistake number 5 is do not underpack your orders. No matter what level the order is at, whether it's something high value or low value, just make sure that the card is protected. If you sell a $2 card and you're shipping it out in a plain white envelope, don't put it in there plain without anything else. Don't even put it in there in just a penny sleeve. Make sure that the card, unless it is a bunch of bulk or something like that, make sure that the card is in a top loader or a semi-rigid, and make sure, if you can, that it's got a team bag over it as well to protect from water. I have seen plenty of posts on like Reddit of people getting a card from TCG Player or eBay, and it comes to them in an envelope, and it is just an envelope. There is nothing else protecting it. You're opening the door for a negative review very easily. You're inviting it in. If you're shipping something in a bubble mailer, I always suggest, obviously top loader team bags still apply, but maybe even put in a little extra cardboard just to stiffen it up and give it some rigidity. Those things go through a lot when they're in the postage process, so just make sure it's protected. And then if you're mailing something in a box, again, just try to make sure it's like firm in there. If you threw just a top loader and a card in a box, there's a very good chance that when all the movement is going on, the card could come out of the top loader and it could bent, get dinged in there. And also, you just want to make sure that it's, taut. So I personally use bubble wrap inside of a box if I'm shipping like a slab or something, just to make sure that it's not rattling around in there. My whole premise basically is that when I'm shipping something, I just want it to stay in place, and I want it to have probably 2 layers of protection outside of the initial layer that it's in. Mistake number 6, which is similar to mistake number 5, is don't overpack the order. I know you obviously want to protect the card that you're selling. When you're shipping it, it goes through a lot during the shipping process, but do not overpack it. You increase the risk of someone damaging the card when they're trying to get it out by overpacking the card. If you've got some kind of contraption going on there that's amalgamation, I don't know if that's the right word, of tape and bubble mailers and, bubble wrap, at some point when they're trying to get it out, they might just try to yank it out, and that opens the room for them to damage the card, and in which case they may follow up with you. Whether or not they have an actual case to follow up with you, they may follow up with you and say, hey, I damaged this card trying to get it out. What can you do? Why did you pack this way? So you just want to find that sweet spot really with shipping, where something's well protected, but it's not overpacked, and someone, when they get it, knows that it's well protected and they can get it out easily when they're unpacking it. The last mistake, and I think this one is really important, is just don't argue over small dollars. When you first get started, especially, and the capital that you have for your business is smaller, it's definitely frustrating when you get a communication from a customer and they're saying, hey, this didn't arrive to me, right? A $5 card means a lot more at that point in time, and it's not your fault that $5 card didn't make it to them if you did everything right. And it's super frustrating that you kind of have to deal with the issue. But that's the unfortunate reality, because if you argue with this person over these $5 saying, hey, I mailed this out, right? I put this in a plain white envelope in a top loader. It was secure. I had the postage on it. Like, this should have made it to you. If you argue with them over that, they're not going to have a good experience. They're already not having a good experience because they didn't get their card, and this is going to solidify that. And that opens the door for negative feedback again. And that's something that when you get started, you really want to make sure that your feedback is positive, because you're not going to have a lot of feedback to help kind of, balance out any negative feedback that you get. It's going to weigh a heavy average on your feedback overall if you get negative feedback. So you just have to make sure that that person has a good experience. And you can do that by letting them know that you'll issue them a refund, and making sure that they leave that interaction pleased. And at the end of the day too, feedback aside, you want to make sure that you're not arguing over small dollars, because you don't want to lose somebody's business because of a few bucks. You might get in a situation where someone reaches out and their $4 card didn't come, and, for all you know, they may be looking at another $100 card that you're selling. But if you handle that situation poorly, well, then you just lost a sale on a $100 card. So it's really important to just let the small dollars go. In the end, they'll all come back to you in due time. If you keep at it and you keep listing and you keep doing the right thing in those situations, you'll more than make up for it. But just make sure that you convince yourself, like, at that time, it's not worth it. Just move on. Don't argue the small dollars. Keep things going. Make sure that your customers are happy, and that'll do wonders for you. So those are pretty much all the mistakes that I've made up to this point. I'm sure that over the year, I'm going to make a bunch more mistakes. I might even repeat some of those mistakes, honestly. It happens. But I know I'm going to make more, and I'm going to make more mistakes for the first time as well. So that's just part of it, is the trying and failing. And I think once you get to the point that you're okay with the failing, the mistakes don't hurt as much, and they become a little more fun. As much fun as a mistake can be, I guess. But that being said, that pretty much wraps us up. So if you watched this, I hope you got something out of it. If there are any mistakes that you've personally encountered, maybe that I didn't mention here, feel free to drop them below. I'm all about trying to share the knowledge when it comes to this kind of shit. So yeah, let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a great day or night, and I will talk to you on the next one.